Welcome back, listeners. This is another episode of the Inspired Writer Collective, and we are your co hosts, Elizabeth and Stephanie. Today's a different kind of episode, so please put in the comments if you enjoy this style. But we're going to be talking about something that I had not seen anyone talking about from a writing perspective. I even tried to look up some references to find some quotes, and I came up empty. So that to me says that it's even more important to talk about this because yeah, we need to be having these conversations. So today's topic is all around our creativity and how it gets affected, the ebbs and flows of it when there are demands on us as caretakers. So I know that the audience for this podcast is a lot of writers who are primary caretakers in their home or who have childcare responsibilities or take care of other people in some form or fashion. And of course, writers in general are naturally inclined towards caretaking roles. It borrows from some of the skill sets, the observations, the fact that you pay attention to detail, the empathy that we tap into as a writer, we also tap into in our caretaking role. And I don't know, this may not sound revolutionary to anyone, but it certainly was to me in my own life when I finally had enough experiences that I realized that the one bucket of energy that I pull from for caretaking is also the same bucket as my creativity. Now, I have other buckets of energy, like physical energy, like going to work out and exercise, that like are not affected by that. But for whatever reason, the way I'm wired, I have noticed that my caretaking energy and creativity come from the same pool of energy. So when I am more heavily taxed with caretaking, there is not energy left over to be creative. And so I've had to adopt some strategies, and we're going to be talking through that in this episode and just talking about this kind of pattern that we've noticed. I know Stephanie, I brought this to you, and then you had a recent experience where you experienced it for yourself.
Yeah, I think you're so right because I can relate to what you're saying so much about the creativity pulling from the same bucket because I feel that in a way I'm wired very similarly. That I found this summer I had two events that happened where one was my shoulder surgery, which was anticipated and I knew that was coming and I was preparing for it. And I had kind of blocked off time and I thought, okay, like this. And I didn't think it would really impact me that much. Come to find out that it did, just energy wise, recovery, all of those pieces. But then about a month after my shoulder surgery, my husband had an unexpected stroke. It was very traumatic. And I very much, shut down, but also went right into that caretaking mode, where I was right there and doing all the things and needing to remember a lot of information and taking notes. And there was just a lot in that. And, he's very fortunate that he's come through it very well. And that has been such a gift. But in the month or two, I don't even know how long it's been. I feel like I've lost complete track of time. Um, but it definitely took away from my ability to come to my fiction writing and to come to my characters again. I found that I could do other, small journaling. I wasn't journaling as much as I thought I would. I was much more in my head. Uh, I had less energy to want to put pen to paper, also because I was still recovering with my shoulder and I'm right-handed. It was my right shoulder, just all of those compounding pieces. And so it was, yeah, I mean, I just think that I was surprised at how much it took me away from my ability to show up and write because I was being consistent. And if you've been listening long enough, you know that I had the goal of, my trying to get my manuscript done. And then just all of that just flooded right out the door with all of this life happening. And I really had to, sit down and give myself grace and say, you know what? It's okay to let your writing be. We are in this world where it's rush, 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 and everybody's, wanting to get the next thing. And I think it was a really good reminder. And we've talked about this before about allowing the rest time, allowing the time to dig into the caretaking role because it really what I mean, it is my priority, my family, yeah, my husband. And if it were my kids, it would be the same thing, and so and at the same time, I was really careful to allow for self-care. And the self-care, while for some of you listening, maybe your writing is your self-care and that's where you turn to. But with everything that was happening, it wasn't where I could turn because I just needed to just be.
Yeah, it's that surprise that I'm hoping that having this conversation and others being able to listen in and think through their own experiences, that's what I'm hoping like will come of this. Um
Mhm.
I remember feeling surprised the first summer that I kept my daughter at home and took on some other kids for childcare because I had all these plans that, oh, well, since I'm not working, I'll have the kids running around, but I'll be able to get stuff done while they take their nap. And I learned that summer that I could not shift from my caretaking side to my creative side and back again that quickly. So that was the lesson I took away from that experience. And then a couple more summers happened. And so going into this summer, I finally had learned that, okay, because all the caretaking is required of me in the summertime, because there's a higher demand there, I know that I need to schedule all of my edits to be done before that time so that my editor has the manuscript during the summer because that's not going to be a productive writing time for me because there is so much demand on me from a caretaking side. So I had sort of learned that lesson at least when it applied to my summertime and my normal summertime schedule. Um, but it's interesting because even though I was able to give myself grace about the summer and kind of schedule around it, I fully expected that come fall, once we were back in the routine of school, I would get back that writing time that you and I had kind of carved out and found. There's
Mhm.
like an hour or 45 minutes where I'm done with my job, but I don't yet have to pick up my daughter from school. And frankly, the only guaranteed time that I can really focus is when she's actually out of the house and not just playing quietly in her room, at least for the level of writing I'm doing now, because I'm not
Mhm.
doing a first draft anymore. I'm doing major edits. And I was really hard on myself initially at the beginning of the school year about why am I not getting back into my edits? Like now I have this manuscript that's been edited. I'm super motivated about getting this book out. I am excited for the feedback I got from my editor, which was largely very positive. I have not even read the manuscript with her edits in there yet. I literally have only managed to read her 10 or 11 page like edit letter that has the synopsis of everything. And I was really hard on myself. Like, why am I not doing this? Why do I not feel this creative energy? What's going on? What's wrong with me? And I tried all my usual
Mhm.
tactics. I tried, my getting out in nature, which helps me tap back into my creativity. I tried my journaling, which a lot of times can be a nice gateway, like the morning pages where you like dump what you're currently thinking about, and then you're able to move through to your project. And I just could not get there. And it felt different than the kind of like, oh, I'm not really in the mood. I'm not feeling inspired. But if I sit down for 10 minutes, I'll be able to focus. It didn't feel like that. It felt like, I should not be making any major creative decisions in this mental space. Like, this is not the space to decide which way I want to edit the storyline to fix this, plot hole or this problem or, something like that. Um, and so it took me, again, a minute to recognize that my role as a paraprofessional in a toddler classroom of a preschool requires me to be a caretaker all my working hours of the day, all those 6.5 hours, even outside of parenting, right? I am in my caretaker role. And while I eventually will get to a point during the school year where that's kind of evened out, the newness of it has,
Mhm.
worked out. We've got our routines in the classroom. The days aren't as stressful. The kids are adjusted to being in school because these are all like 1 to 2 year olds. And a lot of them, this is their first time in any sort of care environment. It takes a while to get there. And I had to be really honest with myself that, oh, it's the same phenomenon that I've already accepted about the summer that I'm experiencing now in the fall, which is a bummer because I'm not getting the edits done that I want to get done, which means I'm not going to have it ready for the beta readers when I want. And that means I'm not going to be publishing it when I hope to. And we have to give ourselves grace for all of that because it is really, at least for me, at the point where I don't know what else to do other than to accept that this is the season it is and that it makes sense because this comes from the same pool of energy. And until I can either create a time where I don't have to do as much caretaking or that pressure just wears off because we've got more routines and systems and it's just a little less demanding mentally, it is what it is. And that's okay. And I have to like find a way to be okay with that. I'm really curious if anyone's experienced this though. So please, like, put your experience in the comments, or if you're listening through one of the apps, you can send us a text. I really want to know if other people have struggled with this, and if you found a way to work yourself out of it other than just letting the season ride.
Well, yeah, no, I'm curious about that too because I try to read things or listen to things to, get ideas. And then I feel overwhelmed because I listen to what other people are doing and I think, I'm not doing enough and they're doing so much. And then, again, it's that vicious cycle I think many of us have as writers where we're really hard on ourselves and then we ease up and then we're really hard on ourselves. And I just have really been reminding myself during this time to say nicer things to myself about, what's going really well and what I'm recognizing each day that is something to celebrate, even if it's not about my writing. Because I think at least I know for myself that when I get really in a place where I get frustrated or I feel like I'm not moving forward the way I want to, that it just stops me even more. And I know I wrote this morning in our email about how I've given myself this challenge of 1,000 words a day, and it's actually been, I don't know, it's like it turned on something in my brain of like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And I've noticed, and I'm not, it's not 1,000 words towards my manuscript per se, or it's just 1,000 words, a combination of my morning pages plus some more and here and there and whatever it is, but just to get my writing muscle back because I really was not exercising it per se over the summer with everything that was going on. And I think, you know, writing is a practice and to allow for figuring out what works and two, like you said, Elizabeth, in different seasons, different things work for us. Last week's podcast guest, Jared Glenn, he wrote his first manuscript one way and then figured out that when he came to the next one, it was something completely different. So we know that sometimes we also can't get ourselves so stuck in a routine and say, like, this is the only way. And I think that that's one of the challenges as writers is there's so many crash books out there and we have this podcast and we talk about what works for us and what we've found, but again, listener, there's what have you found? What are you doing? Join in this conversation as Elizabeth invited you and I'm inviting you too to respond to us. Get on our email list and send us an email. We read every one of them, we respond, we love to hear from you. Because we really believe too in the value of community because in navigating all of this, it's so helpful that Elizabeth and I have each other. But there's also a sense, we do have some listeners and podcast guests who have really stayed close to us. And it feels like a community. It feels like they're people we could, DM on social media and be like, what do I do? And feel like we'd get an honest response and, and get support because you don't have to do it alone. And that's why we have a virtual retreat coming up in about a week and a half now, October 11th and 12th. And, we'd love to have you join us for that virtual retreat.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, Stephanie. It's interesting because I so easily forget that fall is also a not really heavy writing time for me. Like if I look back at the past couple of falls, I really don't start to like crank back up on like a certain designated creative project until about like November. And then I know historically, like that's springtime, January, February, March, like I'm usually can be really like, nose to the grindstone. Like I can really get after projects. And so I'm staying hopeful that that just may naturally be my cycle. But I'm also really thrilled that we have that writer's retreat coming up because the beauty of it is we can bring whatever writing we want to it. Like there's not going to be prompts, you're not going to be asked to write certain things. You know, you bring whatever it is that you want to work on. It can be writing adjacent, like it can be some social media prompts that you're working on, or a Pinterest mood board for a character, or a Spotify playlist. I mean, it can literally be anything. We won't know. We're
Mhm.
not going to ask you. I mean, we might ask, but you're not required to share, right? So, I haven't decided exactly what I want to work on in those times, but I'm really glad that we've got 2 days, a Saturday and a Sunday, and we picked these dates because these are the ones I don't have my kid at home. And so it for me, I'll be able to let go of that caretaking piece for those 2 days. We've got a morning session and an afternoon session each day. So there's plenty of time for me to go and take a walking break and try to dig into that stuff that I know helps me creatively tap in. Um, and I would like to think that that is when I will really knuckle down and force myself to read through all the edits. So I hopefully will feel some inspiration and seeing the story in a fresh set of eyes. I I do think there's sort of a blessing in all of this that I have taken a significant time away from my manuscript. I haven't looked at it since basically the end of June. So this whole like
Mhm.
these last 3+ months, I haven't really been digging into it, and I'll get to see it with fresh eyes, which I know is so valuable when you go into the editing stage. So that's what I hope to use the time for. But who knows? I may get there and decide what I really need is some journaling, and I actually need to use the time to read some stuff or, whatever else. But the beauty of it is I know that that time is already set aside for us. We've already created that. We've already put out the invites. This includes to all of you listeners. If you're not already on our email list, hop on our email list. That's how you'll get the links. There is a special page of our website where you can sign up as well and get more details about the specific times for your time zone. Um, and you don't have to attend all of them. I mean, I will, and Stephanie will, but like you can jump in for just the morning ones or just the Saturday ones or whatever it is. Um, and yeah, that's one of the ways I hope to sort of tap back into to all of it and just trying to show myself a lot of grace and know that everything that I'm doing in the meantime is making me a better writer. The things I read, leading the memoir program right now with a group of 3 other women, like they're inspiring me all the time. And they also challenge me. Like the other week, we were talking about the question came up about how to write the hardest parts of your story. And so we went into a deep dive of like what techniques I've used, what I think is, most helpful, and all of the self care that goes around that. Because again, caretaking, we got to take care of ourselves too. And even in that situation where you have to really do a lot of self care, I warned them that, like, that may be the only thing you write all week if you're writing a really hard section of your memoir, because then that self care piece takes up a lot of that creative energy for the next couple of days as you restore. Um, so I'm getting all kinds of as my editor referred to it as writer compost, right? Ingredients to put into that writer compost that slowly breaks down and adds nutrients that you can draw from once you actually sit down with your particular writing project. But who knows what is important at this point to feed into that? I just trust that I'm gaining a lot of that now, and I'm, feeling inspired by the ways that my life experiences are
Mhm.
unfolding, but also the things I read, the things I see, the people I talk to, and the conversations I get to have.
Well, and I agree with you. I was thinking about this, about how much, life can feed into writing, and of course, obviously with memoir and, my fiction writing is very much pulled from my life experience. And, there was so much from the summer that has really informed some of the direction that I'm going with what I'm writing. It really helped me land on an overarching theme for my romance novels around second chances. And because, this summer was very much about second chances, so many second chances. And it really felt like an important place to focus my energy. And I think coming to that focal point, I don't know that it would have happened if I hadn't taken time to rest and think and reflect and really look at, how life is informing what I'm doing. And again, as writers, we pull so much from life as it is anyways. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the retreat too. Again, I don't know if I'm going to work on my manuscript or if I'm going to be working on something else. It's always hard to know exactly where I am. I am picking up momentum with my current manuscript. I have 2 projects going at the same time. It's helping my ADHD balance its brain balance itself out. Mostly because also my characters are part of the same world, just different things are happening to them. So that's really helpful. And yeah, I think as we've talked, these places of rest and the self-care that's so important that we so often forget about, especially as caretakers. It's so common to just give, give, and pour everything out and forget that you have to pour back into yourself as well.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to say that, Stephanie. And I think that's a great place to sort of wrap up our conversation for today. I know this is really different, guys, in the sense that we're just kind of talking about life and the struggle of it, and we don't have a solution for you to this problem. I don't even know if you have this problem. I don't know if this is a universal thing or just something that the two of us have found to be a pattern in our writing world. So let us know. Even if this is not your experience at all, I would love to hear that too. I'd love to hear that other perspective. And once again, we invite you to join us for our writers retreat. Again, that's October 11th and 12th. And you can find more information on our website, inspiredwritercollective.com, and hop on our email list to get those Zoom links. And we look forward to writing with you.